Record. Right, we are on our second Fireside chat with Johnathan Marshall in the amazing, look at that view. Are you all envious? I've got my little salt lamp in the background, and this is the nearest I'm getting to my fire. Hey, size doesn't matter, does it? So let's not be competitive about it. Yeah. So much to talk about tonight. I don't quite know where to begin. I've got lots. So first of all, are we going to be in luck with owl time tonight? Because I've seen your posts about the gorgeous owls. Do we reckon we'll hear them tonight?
Well, I'm sure you will. You've timed it absolutely spot on, because I reckon in about 10-15 minutes they'll start. Now, I know that not everybody's probably as potty as you and me about animals, but I love everything to do with nature, and listening to the owls is one of my favorite things. We're really, really lucky to live in this beautiful place that we live in, and our neighbors aren't humans. All our neighbors are animals, and so we start to kind of listen out for them now because we know them all. So there's an owl which I'm sure I'll be able to point them out to you, with a low pitched hoot over there, and then there's a high pitched hoot comes out into our pear tree. So it's a male and a female, and the high pitch is the male, not the female's the low one. And then further down the valley, there's another group, and then there's barn owls as well. So the barn owls always come out a little bit later than the tawnies. The tawnies are the first ones to start hooting, and then the barn owls come out later, which is surprising because barn owls are crepuscular, which is an unusual word, and it means they come out night and day, whereas tawny owls are really nocturnal. They don't come out in the daytime at all. But the barn owls always seem to come out after the tawnies here for some reason or another.
Well, so, it's interesting because I'm really lucky. I mean, I haven't got my view on. I don't think my internet is good enough, but I'm really lucky where I live. And my horses are just in the paddock at the bottom of my garden. And I go out late at night, and it's hysterical because I rent the field off one of my neighbours. And the amount of times they've caught me wandering around with my head torch on at 11 o'clock at night in my dressing gown like some nutter. But the owls are just amazing. And then we've got badgers out there and foxes and obviously the bunny rabbits and all the rodents. And I saw a weasel the other day. Don't know what that was trying to tell me. I did look up what it was trying to tell me. It was literally just sitting up, staring at me. And we've got so much wildlife around here, and what I love, actually, I'm really obsessed with the Canadian geese as well. So where we live, we've got a few really amazing posh houses, and they've got fantastic ponds, and obviously the Canadian geese go off for the winter and then come back again. So last year, the pond next door to us, the lovely people, they thought I was a mad stalker because every time I go past them, I'm just sort of staring in and talking, because they had two breeding pairs of Canadian geese, and one of them had 4 chicks and the other one had 2. I don't know if you call Canadian geese, but I call them chicks. And I watched them grow up, and it was so amazing because we've got so many foxes and badgers and everything around us, but they all survived. And then just before they were all due to migrate off, one of the poor babies that had fledged broke its wing. They don't know how it did it. So all the rest of the families went off without this one goose. And I've been obsessed with it all winter. The neighbours are having hysterics about it because I'm just constantly going around every day to check on the goose. And it survived all winter. It's still there, and it can't fly, and it survived all winter. And they've got black swans and other ducks, different species of ducks on their pond, and the swans are really territorial and quite nasty and chase it off, but it still gets enough food. And trust me, if I wanted to live somewhere as a goose, I'd want to live on that pond. It's just stunning. So it's all we ever talk about. So they now call me the mad goose lady.
Right for that gosling, which now obviously grown up, when they all come back after migrating and he sees it. It's getting me emotional. I can just imagine it.
So this is the whole story. Sorry, everyone. We'll get on to other things, but this is the whole story. So we've been waiting for it to come back. And there's these 2 gorgeous houses next door to each other, and they're both huge, great, beautiful houses, but the people that own them are lovely. But this gosling was living at one of them. It had fledged into an amazing goose, and it's just beautiful. And so we've watched its whole story all winter, and every day I've been going to check on it and everything. And congratulating the owner on their new child, and they just look at me as if I'm really odd, but they know what I'm like. And so then all the others have come back now, so they've flown over. But the bloody people with the pond have decided to have all loads of work and have their pond dredged. So the geese have had to move on to the neighbour's pond. So it's like the best saga ever. I tell you what, it's way better than EastEnders. But it's so emotional so far, because there were 6 of them in total. The injured one stayed behind. So there should have been 5 back. And so far, we've only got 3 back. But there's a couple of other new ponds nearby that they've dug out. So I'm hoping the others have gone there. Honestly, it's you can't. It's these geese are just amazing, and I so want to ask them where they've been and how they.
I know. Imagine if they could tell you. Imagine if they could talk and tell you all the stories that they would be able to tell you. You know, of their journey, how far they've flown. I always think that with all these birds that migrate, especially in Britain, because we've got, like, you know, obviously the swallows are famous for coming back to breed in the summer, and then they fly all the way to Africa. Now, one of the things that perhaps a lot of people don't realize is that hobbies, which are a beautiful little type of falcon, follow the swallows and the swifts. So they fly all the way from Great Britain all the way down to Africa and then back again to breed in the summer. And where I used to live down in East Devon, I used to live at a beautiful little place not too far from Beer. And there was a breeding pair of hobbies that nested down there every summer. I used to go and watch them, and you'd watch them develop and watch the babies fledge. And then when about September, October time, they'd be, you know, getting ready to migrate. And then one day they'd be gone, and it was really sad. Yeah. And I used to think every summer when they came back, imagine if those hobbies could tell you about the places they've flown over and all the things, that they will have seen. They've got such a different perspective on life, because to you and me, I mean, at the moment, we can't even go 5 miles further than 5 miles away. But to a bird, they could just think, right, well, I'll just fly to Africa. And amazing, isn't it?
Well, we're going to come on to this. It's one of the things I'm going to ask about, because we know they can tell us if we ask and if we listen. So we'll come on to that in a minute. But can you imagine that level of fitness? So I have just done with my neighbour, 5K running.
I am that.
Yeah, I think I'm amazing because I've managed to run 5K. Can you imagine flying to Africa? I mean, it's beyond the comprehension of any human, how you could be not only physically, but I mean, I can't go anywhere without my sat nav. Funny enough, if you put me on a horse or with a dog in the middle of the woods, I can find my way anywhere. But if you put me in a car, then God help you if I haven't got a sat nav. But can you imagine, 1, finding your way to Africa, and 2, physically being able to do it? That is just incredible.
Well, it's funny you should actually bring that up, because you see, this all goes back to, do you remember the last time we spoke? I was talking to you about how people have forgot to look inside, how people have forgot to think inwardly, because everyone's thinking externally. They're always looking for the answers from other people, and they're looking for experts to tell you. They've forgotten to look inward. And that's what animals do all the time. And that's why, you know, when you see them in the zoo, like a chimp or an animal, you see the intelligence in it. It's because they actually are real, and they think about, they think with their instinct, if you like. It's a different sort of level of intelligence. And one of the things that people have been saying, and I'm sure you'll have had this said to you loads of time, is that at the moment, really, really highly educated people can't see the truth. Now, this is why I'm coming on to this, because actually I think that sometimes the more educated you are, the more degrees and everything else you've got, it just means that your brain has been sort of deviated. It's been focused on something other than what you inwardly know, your innate knowledge. And what I mean by that is, the way I can explain that is, let's take a falcon. If I train, say, Duchess, one of my famous falcons, Duchess is brilliant at doing the shows because I've trained her, and she's had 5 years of doing this, and she knows it inside out. People say to me, how have you trained her to do that, flying through the horse's legs, la, la, la. A wild bird of prey would never in a million years do that. But exactly. Duchess does it every time. And that's because I have manipulated the way she thinks into being focused on what she's got to do. Now, a wild bird, which has never been handled or trained in any way, is so much more intelligent, if you like, at surviving and looking after itself, because it hasn't been interfered with. Yeah. So in other words, although Duchess is very clever from my perspective, because she does everything I want her to do, she's just more manipulated than the wild one. The wild one would survive so much more easily than a Duchess in the wild, because it hasn't been It hasn't been programmed. And that is exactly like all these people who are programmed and educated. It's almost like they've had the common sense educated out of them. There isn't enough room for them. It's because they only work within the confines of the structure that they've been trained to think in, and they can't think outside of that. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I do. This is where I do get a bit defensive, because I've got a few degrees and I'm not like that at all. And I think it is horses for courses. So I think there's a danger, and it's much easier to become manipulated, because, you know, we've all only got a certain amount of hours in the day and a certain amount of time. So if you're filling that with other people's knowledge, but then equally, it doesn't have to be like that, because when I'm looking at, you know, the people I'm interacting with and the people that see what's going on and the people that don't, it's a complete cross section. It really is a complete cross section.
I'm not saying all educated people are silly.
I know you're not, and it is a generalisation, but I equally see a lot of people that aren't educated, but see EastEnders as their education, that are, you know, so it is horses for courses. But what you said about the instincts is so important. So one of my ponies, Romeo, my darling Romeo, I love going out at night. So I have such fun at night calling my animals. My best fun. So I'm obsessed. I've got cats and guinea pigs and dogs and horses. And then I've got a little flock of pheasants that have chosen to live with us. So I'm very proud of that. And but when I have great fun naming my animals. So we had this gorgeous ginger cat called Wilbur. So at night I used to call out the front door, because I used to make the neighbours laugh, "Where's my ginger Willie?" And then one of our other cats was called Steve. He only had one eye, bless him, because all animals are rescues. And my neighbour's husband's called Steve. So at night I'd call.
The owls just hooted for the first. Listen, let's go back to the story in a sec. Listen. Typical, isn't it? It'll carry on in a minute anyway.
Yeah.
Go on, back to Steve.
Now, hang on. Let's just wait a minute. Let's just give it a few minutes, because we can wait.
You hear it?
Yes.
It'll get more and more and more.
Well, carry on. Just stop me. Go like this and I'll stop. So one of my other cats was called Steve, and one of my neighbour's husbands was called Steve. And not that the neighbour had two husbands, so I've got different neighbours. And so I used to love calling out at night, "Come on, Steve, are you coming to bed?" Because the other neighbours didn't get it. But yeah, so yeah, the animals. But one of my ponies, Romeo, he lived wild on the New Forest for 4 years. So he's completely looked after himself for 4 years. And he is absolutely incredible. And I've got a couple of Romanian rescue dogs that have been street dogs, and a Romanian rescue cat that was literally here 2 seconds ago and has just gone out, called Idris. He's amazing. And these animals that have lived wild and looked after themselves, they're completely different to domesticated animals. And it's such a joy to be around them. So I work a lot with animals self-medicating and with animal communications. And when you see Romeo, who's looked after himself for 4 years, you know, he's far more capable of knowing what he needs than I will ever be, however much studying I do. So looking at these wild animals and how they tune in, and how they, you know, if you've lost that intuition, you're dead in the wild. And this is exactly where we've gone to. And you can see how manipulated as humans we've been, because we've lived in I'm talking about in the Western world, we've lived in a society where they've taught us to fill every minute of every day and night with information. And there's no time then left for actually us to connect with nature, listen to ourselves and go inward. And it's been deliberate, hasn't it?
Well, you know, this last week, we have this lovely place, and I'm doing loads of work on the farm at the moment, because spring is springing here, all the flowers coming up. So I've got like a list of jobs this long. And one of the jobs I've been doing, and it's been absolutely brilliant. This is why a minute ago when you said about being fit, I'll tell you why I laughed at that. We've got this bank, and I call it now the citrus garden because I've planted a load of citrus trees. I've got orange trees, lemons, limes, tangerine, grapefruit, all these lovely citrus trees, which are all fruiting already, believe it or not. And they were in massive big pots. So I've been digging massive holes and planting them all, and I've put it on this big bank. And so basically all I've done for since I last spoke to you is be out in the garden, digging holes, building a wall on my own all day with no one to talk to, which I love. And I've just got all the wildlife around me, the buzzards and all the birds. And it's fantastic. And it's almost like meditation. And when I come in the evening, the worst thing to do is stick on the blooming TV, because straight away it just makes me angry. I just hate it. And I want to escape all that BS, because it's all BS. And people sometimes now, especially if they're, unfortunate enough to be stuck in a little flat in the middle of a city, what do? They just sit there kind of being brainwashed by a stupid television, telling them lies and frightening them all day long. No wonder they're depressed. So for me to get out here where there's no one, and it's beautiful and quiet, and it's just nature, and I have to be careful when I say this because it sounds like I'm gloating. I'm really not, because everybody can, if they want to, go and find somewhere quiet, even if you're in a city. I was brought up near Liverpool, so I know. I used to go out on marshes when I was a little lad flying me falcons a million years ago. So I always used to try and look for quiet, solitary places, and I absolutely love it. And it's brilliant for your soul. Inside, it makes you feel alive, especially with nice weather. So yeah, I'm feeling fit as a fiddle, fit as a fiddle or fit as a flea, either one, and completely sort of I don't know, calm. And it's because I decided to turn off the TV, not listen to the BS. I flick through my phone and listen to what the headlines are, just to kind of see what lies they're coming up with next. But I don't want to immerse myself in it because it's toxic. It just makes you feel crap.
You're so right. And the thing is, I think everything in life, it's like that balance between awareness, but not staying there. So, what I try to do, it's I'm a big fan of Joe Dispenza. I love Joe Dispenza. Seen him live a couple of times. He's amazing. And when you see him live and see the energy and how he can perform all day, you can tell that's someone that's walking the talk. But it's like you can choose. Of course, everyone's going to go through ups and downs, etc. But it's how long you stay there. So I'm like you. I'll flick on to see what crap they're coming up with next, so I can empathize with what other people I'm going to be interacting with, family members, etc., are going through. But I don't choose to stay there, and that's the difference. And what I want to sort of really say to people, exactly like you said, of course, you and I are quite lucky. We've created lives for ourselves, surrounded by animals in the countryside and in nature. And I just feel so blessed where we are now. I mean, it's just incredible. I go up, I've got 2 sort of horses fields, and the people that I rent off are really amazing because they know how mad I am. So they don't spray any chemicals. They leave all the fallen branches and the wood there, and it's really, really natural. And we go up there every morning, and there's badgers in there, and there's foxes in there, and there's loads of birds of prey, and there's poor rabbits that obviously are having shit time of it with all those other animals I've just mentioned around. I've decided I don't want to come back as a rabbit. It's too stressful. And we're so lucky. But what I would say is, wherever you are, as you say, just allowing yourself that quiet time, you'll start to really tune in with what your body and mind needs. And it's much easier when you allow yourself some of that quiet time to actually then, regardless of whether intellectually you know what's right and wrong, in your soul, in your gut, in your intuition, you know what's right and wrong, and whether you're being led a merry dance. Because again, animals, they know this, they can pick it up, they're reading the energy fields all the time. I mean, seriously, if anyone's going to watch bloody Matt Hancock, I better not say what I normally call him, and Chris Whitty. I've never been interested in politics because I've always thought they're all a bunch of assholes. But when you watch them, you can just tell from looking at them, they're not happy. They're certainly not healthy. they're completely not telling you the truth, and they're completely self-centered.
The funny thing is, you know, I was going to mention this and you just brought it up. You know that saying, oh, you should never judge a book by its cover. Everyone's heard that. Or my grandma used to say, oh, you should never judge a sausage by its skin, because that's how she spoke. And it's true to a degree. But I have to say, if you look at those people you just mentioned, right? Look at Boris. He looks like a train wreck. He can't even brush his hair. He looks like he's just got out of bed. And he's supposed to be representing us around the world. I'm embarrassed. And I used to think that with Boris, because he was a bit quirky and funny, I used to like him because I thought, well, he must be really bright. He must be really, really intelligent stuff. Because someone who's eccentric and quirky, you can kind of forgive them all that. But now I realise he's just a knobhead. And I'm actually embarrassed to think that he's representing our country. But the other one you mentioned, is it Chris Whitty? Is he the one with the big googly eyes, big starey eyes?
Yeah.
To me, he looks like an alien. He looks, and all of these people, and I don't want to sound like I'm just judging them because of the way they look, but all of these people look to me like the kind of kid at school who was never picked for the football team because they were a real knob. And it's like as they've got older, they've now got themselves into a position of power and they sort of want to make everyone else suffer for it. So, you know, just looking at that group of people, Chris Whitty, Matt Hancock, I hate Matt Hancock, Boris Johnson.
I have to be really concentrate when I say it, because obviously that's not what we call him, really. So,
but anyway, all of those people there, I wouldn't have them around at my house. There's no way I would ever say, hey, do you want to come round and have a meal at our house? I'd really like to spend the night.
You wouldn't leave your kids
have a chat with them.
I wouldn't leave my goldfish with them. You know, there's no life force there. That's what gets me. It's like life force. And this has nothing to do with being good looking or not. But in the wild, if an animal is physically unwell, they obviously give off stress pheromones, and all the other animals, the animals in their own pack or herd, whatever the animal is, can tell it, and they will often shun that animal out, because by having one weak link in there, they're giving off the stress pheromones that all the predators can do. So they're bringing the whole herd into danger. But also that animal's very well aware of that. So when an animal's not physically on power, they're mentally stressed because they know they're very vulnerable. Whether you're a predator or whether you're a prey, and animals live by their sense of smell. And interestingly, so do I, because I wear hearing aids. My hearing's really bad. So I can smell everything, you know, can smell exactly where a fox has been. I can, you know, and when one sense goes, the others take over. And the thing is not judging a book by the cover. We're not talking about whether someone's attractive or not. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but it's whether you've got that life force and what energy you're admitting to the world. And animals can pick that up perfectly, way better than most humans can.
At the other end of the field, they know whether if you're in a bad mood or a good mood. They know from the other end of the paddock.
Completely. And my Romeo's the best one ever, because if I come in and I'm stressed, he's like, fuck off, don't come in here until sort your crap out. Don't you offload it off me. Whilst the other two that have been in more human environments their whole life, unfortunately, they just take it. They don't object. But my animals that have actually looked after themselves, they won't tolerate me bringing that attitude into their energy field at all. They're like, you're not dumping this on us. Go and sort yourself out and then come back and get me. And it's perfect because he's so honest. You know, you can't lie to an animal.
Well, animals, because they are honest. You know, that's the great thing about, it's a bit like children. You know how children just say it.
Exactly.
And then what happens, you know, what happens with people is we kind of grow up, and then all of that honesty is sort of beaten out of us. You can't say that, and you're not allowed to say that, and you better be on your best behavior. In actual fact, what that teaches us to do is to just not be natural anymore. And that's why I love animals. Animals don't care whether you're rich, ugly, fat, thin, black, white, any of that stuff is totally irrelevant. All they want to know is whether you're nice or not, and they know straight away. Exactly. They pick up on it like that. And people don't work like that. I mean, one of the things that I really find horrible about people is, you know, this social climbing nonsense that people do, because so and so is a desirable person to know because they are either rich or they can sort of help you in some way socially, so people use them to sort of socially climb. I hate that. It's such nonsense. Some of the nicest people I know have got nothing. Yeah. And in fact, I know really nice people who've got everything, but it's not anything to do with how much people have got or what school they went to or what background. None of that matters. It's whether they're a nice person or not. And there is no sort of like, for me personally, I can only speak for me because everyone's got it, but I am not if someone's a prick, I'm not interested in how rich they are. I don't want to know them. If someone's a lovely person, whether they're a tramp or a billionaire, I'd like to know them because I like them and because they're nice. That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting. About sort of 8 years ago, I was lucky enough to go out to Zambia and work for, big shout out for Game Rangers International and the David Shepherd Wildlife Fund at the Elephant Orphanage. So for orphaned elephants where their parents have been poached, and I am just horrifically sad, just absolutely awful, because a lot of the babies were horribly injured in the process as well. Now, the keepers, the people from Zambia that work there, I have never met a nicer bunch of people in my life. They literally had nothing. They had such pride in their job, and I have never ever seen people with a better connection with animals. So even a baby elephant is huge. So even a baby elephant is way bigger than any horse you're going to come across. You can't put a head collar on an elephant and lead it around by force. You just can't do it. Well, yeah. You can by really cruel methods, but obviously none of these people are cruel, quite the opposite. So we would go out into the bush all day and the keepers would lead and the elephants would just follow completely free. Now, how many people do you know with their horses where you could just go off and their horses would choose to follow them? Now, these keepers were so kind and so gentle and so intuitive with the elephants that those baby elephants trusted them with their life. But they could have gone off at any time and they didn't. And I've never, they were so calm. They were so in tune with nature. They really read the elephant's body language perfectly. None of this had been taught. It was all came completely naturally to them. And as such, these beautiful elephants, and some of them were just absolutely enormous, just follow them everywhere and listen to them. But they listen to them through communication, not through any force.
Yeah.
There's very few people, whether you've got a dog or a horse or a cow, anything, that have that level of relationship with the animals that I've seen.
Well, you know, a few years ago, I don't know if you knew this, but I had a famous golden eagle at the time called Samson. And the long story about how I got him, but essentially he'd been stolen from the zoo and he was in poor condition. Anyway, he ended up with me. And I got him back to being beautiful again. Took about a year. He had to molt and had to repair his wing feathers and all the rest of it. Anyway, because I'm a hang glider pilot, I thought, I wonder if I could train him to follow me in a hang glider. So I trained him to follow me for food. And I don't know if you've ever seen hang gliding, but I lived in North Devon at the time. I used to go down to Woolacombe and fly off the ridge with another friend of mine called Trevor Jordan, and another guy called Mike Stainer. And we used to fly up and down the ridge all the time. So I thought, if I take the eagle with me and then take food, and when he's flying, I'll throw bits of food to him, a bit like you'd feed a duck or any other animal. So he was following me because he was getting food. Anyway, of course, it attracted loads of attention on the media, which, of course, I made the most of. We were in the National Geographic and on every TV station you could think of. We did all the, what was it called now? Spring Watch and Humble and all that lot. They all got involved in it because it was a lovely story. It went all around the world. Anyway, we did this, me and Samson, this golden eagle. He was enormous. He was like this big with a 7 feet span. And we did this for a couple of years. And then finally, he got so good and he knew it so well that I thought, I wonder if I feed him first, so he's not hungry anymore, whether he'd still follow me or whether he'd just bugger off somewhere, because he was following me because he was getting food. And so I tried it, took him to Woolacombe Down. I'd fed him already, and I launched him off, and he went up soaring, and I launched him my hang glide. So, and do you know what? He started to follow me just purely because he was enjoying flying with me. And you know what was really amazing? And when I tell this story, and I quite often use this when I'm doing talks for falconry groups or whatever, a lot of people get a bit irritated by this, but I can't help it, the fact that it's true. I got to connect with that eagle in a way that I've never connected with any other bird of prey before, because suddenly he was flying with me for fun, not for food, not because there was a reward at the end for him, just because we were flying together. And so because of that, I got to know him. Again, it sounds really, but it's true. I got to know him on a spiritual level. And the reason I say that, it's really true, and you'd have to experience it to understand it, really. But the reason I say that is that normally the relationship is there's a trade-off somewhere. The bird does it because it's getting fed. But when the food is out the equation, the only reason it's flying with you is because it's fun, it's choice. So you suddenly become on a level. I was looking at an eagle who I could follow him anywhere. We're on a massive, great big cliff, you know, no tree. So if he flew 5 miles over there, I could just follow him in my hang glider. And so, but because he chose to stay with me, I felt as though the relationship changed. It became much more equal. And when he got tired, if he got tired, he'd just go down and usually sit on top of my Land Rover and just have a rest, or he might go and sit on a post somewhere, and I could stay up flying for hours if the conditions are right. I mean, you don't need an engine or anything like that. Hang gliding, stay up all day. So we did that. I'd say the whole thing, probably from when he started to fly with me until eventually he was shot by a gamekeeper, which was terrible. Probably about 5-6 years, that little time span. And it was so brilliant, and no one will ever be able to take that away from me. All the people who kind of criticized, because of course I used it because it was a fabulous story. Exactly. And it was unique. And, you know, I got lots of media attention from it, and I'd be pretty stupid not to make the most of that. So, of course, I went everywhere. But that aside, it doesn't matter anymore because, you know, that was part of my life then. But those memories and that feeling and that connection that I had with Samson, no one, no matter who they are, no matter whether they like me or hate me, no one can ever take that away, because I experienced it and Samson experienced it. And it was a beautiful thing because it was equal. That's what it was. And that's why I felt spiritually like we were connected more. I mean, the problem is you use the word spiritually and people go, oh, he's one of these hippie types. I'm not at all. But how else do you describe it? Because physically, I'm a person. Physically, he was an eagle. Yeah. But inside, he was a living thing with a viewpoint and with a, you know, with the ability to think, well, I'll fly over there or over that ridge, or I'll go over that side. So you forget the fact that he was an eagle. He was a living creature, and he could think and he could make decisions. And I've been a living creature, and I could think and make decisions. And we chose to do it together. So the only word I can use that makes it sound that I can explain is it was a spiritual thing, because we were two different life forms in two different bodies, designs, but we were experiencing the same thing together. You know, sometimes when you see these people who go, say, snorkeling and scuba diving, and there's fish, and you're in their world, so you're the one who's out of place because that's where they live. But when they're swimming around, and all the creatures aren't frightened of them because they know that they can outswim the diver. It was like that. I was the fish out of water because I was in the sky, and people don't live in the sky, but I did with Samson. So he saw me differently. I hope that makes sense to you. It makes perfect sense to me. It was fantastic.
It is, and there's just nothing like it when you actually, whether whatever species it is, and it's really funny. So I'm a biologist, and I specialised in animal behaviour, and you get taught not to put human emotions onto animals, but it's absolutely crap. So I communicate with animals. Everyone can communicate with animals, and certainly every child can communicate with animals. And every single time, it's absolutely shocking to me. I mean, my husband gets fed up of me saying it. He's like, when you're going to realize this is normal, is the animals know everything we're thinking and feeling. So
I agree.
when you communicate with the animals, they so rarely talk about themselves. They're always talking about their owners, and the things they tell you, you just couldn't make up in a million years. There's no way you could know that from someone you've never met. It's so personal and so so important to the human. And the animals know everything that's going on because they pick up on energy fields, and our words are not representative often of what we're feeling.
Right, absolutely. The worst thing that we could do is talk.
Exactly.
Because the problem is with words is they can tell lies. But what you're describing, the truth, which is energy, it never lies because it's truth.
Yeah. And it's never lies, and you can't fake it at all. You just can't fake it at all. So it's just such a gift being surrounded by animals. And, Romeo, who I was just talking about earlier, it's amazing. So when I go out over the woods and everything, I can just let him off and have follow me. But equally, if I answer a phone call and I'm on the phone when I'm with him, he will bugger off because to him, that's the ultimate disrespect. It's like, this is your time with me. There's not enough of it anyway, and your attention is now elsewhere. And he's done it to me so many times before. And it's completely true. And I agree, it's really disrespectful of him. 1 minute I'm talking to him and the next minute I'm answering a phone call. How rude. And he doesn't let me get away with anything. It's absolutely amazing. And also, one of my cats, I mean, we've just been adopted by a cat, and it's the most special feeling ever. And this is why I think I love cats so much, because a cat, if it as long as it's not shut in, if you don't treat it right, will bugger off and find another home, and they do. And we've got this stray cat that's appeared in our little neighborhood where there's like 10 of us in a row in the middle of nowhere. And they'd all seen this stray cat. And then, of course, I see it and I'm like, oh, God. Now, of course, I have been feeding it, but it's chosen to come and live with us. And it's such a wonderful feeling because it's had the choice of all these other people, and it's chosen to come and live with us. And anytime it wants to go, it can go, as well. And that's what I love about cats, is they're such free spirits.
I agree
most of the time you treat them differently to, a dog is always fenced in normally, and a horse is normally fenced in. But a cat, you can't, unless you've got a house cat that you lock in, you can't keep a cat in because it can climb up the tree, jump over any fence. I mean, physically, they're just amazing how agile and strong they are, and yet how stealthy as well. And so if a cat chooses to spend its life with you, it's a real honor, I find.
You know what? You'd really get on with my mum. And the reason I tell you that is that, I talk about my mum a lot because I love her to bits and I miss her like crazy because she's in England and I'm out here. But she's literally like, on the cartoon, is it Snow White? I think it's Snow White, or maybe Cinderella, one of them anywhere, where the girl walks out and all the birds are following her.
Snow White, yeah.
That is my mum. I'm telling you now, that is exactly my mum. She lives in Cornwall. She's got a lovely little cottage in the countryside. She feeds everything, okay? Yeah. The squirrels, the pheasants, all the birds. And last summer when I was in England, I'd go and have a cup of tea with my mum pretty much every day. And when she appears, it's just like that. It's exactly like that. All these animals just come out the woodwork because they're all thinking, oh, we're going to get fed. But it's just so typical of my mum, because she just loves every animal and she just wants to feed everything all the time. It's great. You'd get on with her because she's a softie like you.
That's exactly how I do. And my mum as well. So my mum, she's got like 7 dogs of her own to feed and a rescued parrot and everything. And yet she's got like about 15 foxes that come onto her property every day, even though there's all the dogs there that she feeds. So she spends all her money on feeding. She's very good. She feeds them raw chicken wings, not crap. But it's hysterical because they all love her. And what's so amazing is when you see the relationship between you know, the different species and everything. So it's just absolutely fantastic to see. Like, one of my cats will jump on top of the horse's back, and the pheasants now know us really well, so they know we're not dangerous, although one of the cats they're a bit scared of, but the rest of them. And when you see how they're constantly judging everything and just summing up in terms of who and what can be trusted and everything, it's just amazing to see. It really is. And I think we've got so much to learn from them. And I think, you know, what's been happening in all
they're our biggest teachers. Our best teachers are animals.
They really are, because, you know, unfortunately, there's not many indigenous tribes left anymore, because obviously they would teach us as much as well, because they always lived in balance with the animals. And, you know, if they caught one and ate it, they'd give thanks and worship the spirit of the animal. And, you know, nothing was wasted and there was nothing done in excess. And I think, you know, for me, I think we might have mentioned it last time, but, you know, I was hearing things. I was looking at a couple of your videos, and like the Charlie Chaplin one that you posted on Facebook was absolutely brilliant. But
well, I mean, every time I hear that, I want to cry.
It absolutely unbelievable. But one of the things that's my real bugbear is everyone says they're treating, like at the moment, a common thing is they're treating people like sheep or like cattle. And I'm like, you're missing the point. You shouldn't be treating cattle like that. You know, and this is what annoys me. It's like, you know, oh, the vaccines, we've missed out the animal experiments. You shouldn't be experimenting on animals. They're not put on this earth to, you know, serve us. We've all got equal standing and we've all got our different places. And yes, in nature is definitely cruel. I mean, when I saw this gorgeous weasel, 1 minute I was really excited, and then I thought, oh my God, the poor bunnies. They've got weasels.
I know.
Fox,
there's a difference between nature and people, because when an animal, whether it's a lion or a bird of prey, or when it eats another one, it's eating it because it's survival, and that's what it eats. It's not doing it because it wants to harm it. It's not doing it because it wants to inflict pain or it wants to get it. It's doing it because it's nature and that's what it's designed to eat. That's what. In fact, sometimes when you watch these wildlife programs, or you see it, you experience it yourself in the wild, the predator kind of, the prey, whatever it might have to be, sort of almost knows it's when it's time's up. I've been caught, okay. And they go into like a shock. They go into shock.
Yeah.
And they almost feel, I'm saying they don't, I don't know, I've never been eaten alive, but they kind of almost sort of accept it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm sure you've witnessed that. I've witnessed it in person with birds of prey when they've been captured. But somehow or other, I can't say it's beautiful to watch something being eaten by another animal, but there's something natural about it, and so therefore it's right. And you can go, well, that I accept that because it's just the cycle of life, and that's it. But what we're experiencing now, what we're talking about, this terrible, I think, mass murder of millions of people, is so evil and so
genocide.
I really believe that. And again, you know, probably like you, I have been criticised for a whole year. And for a whole year, do you know, I saw you and Charlie Ward talking on the video a week or two ago. And I got to know Charlie when he had like 30 followers, and he was right at the very, very beginning. He was one of the first people. There was myself, there was a few others saying what we're all saying now. And I didn't think that what we were saying was particularly outspoken. In fact, I thought that most people would say, yeah, but I've been absolutely gobsmacked. I mean, there isn't a word, gobsmacked doesn't do it. There isn't a word to describe how unbelievably shocked I've been at A, how people have complied with it all, and B, how now they're defending it. So if anybody like you or me says, well, hang on a minute, this is my body, I don't want to have a vaccine, I don't want to be da-da-da-da-da-da, and it's my right because this is my body. There's this sort of like, yes, but you should because of everybody else, blah, 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 waving the fingers. Now, a good friend of mine, Numsk, who's a fantastic artist, we were talking this afternoon about this, because he's like on the same page as you and me. Doesn't want a vaccine, he's not going to have it. They'd have to tie him down. Excuse me, they'd have to tie him down first. Incidentally, if you're thinking to yourself, Christ, Johnathan never stops eating. I'm just eating all these snacks and stuff because I've had nothing to eat all day and I'm ravenous. So I noticed on the last video.
I'm absolutely starving, and my little wine fairy, my husband crept in a minute ago and gave me a really nice glass of wine. So I'm exactly the same.
I don't know where my Jack Daniels fairy's gone, but anyway.
Yeah.
What was I saying? So yeah. So firstly, don't think I'm a glutton. It's just that I'm ravenous. But going back to what we're saying about norms, he called me up because he was really frustrated because of what he's seen on the TV and stuff like that. And it's so simple. We've all said this a million times. If you've had a vaccine, okay, why are you worried about me? Because you've had a vaccine, so you shouldn't be worried. Because if you've had one, you're protected. And if it doesn't protect you, why have you bloody had it? You don't have to be a brain box to work that out. So from my point of view, it's all the arguing and all the going in and out of all the I mean intricacies of how they'd want to spin it. It's very, very straightforward. If you're protected, why does it worry you whether I am or I'm not? And if it doesn't work, why have you had it in the first place? Completely. You don't have to be bright to work that out.
And it's hysterical. I was having this argument yesterday with someone, and I think I've developed Tourette's because I do seem to not be able to just express it without swearing because it's so stupid. We've had it as a mum. I've had this all the way through. It's like I'm really selfish if I'm not vaccinating my children, and I'm like, actually, you're so lucky I'm not kicking out shit because your children are shedding all these harmful things. They're putting all this crap in the water. They're making all these strains of diseases far more virulent, which we'll come on to in a minute with this supposed coronavirus vaccine. We've even got one of Bill Gates's, one of the top vaccine proposers in the world, crying virtually on video, saying how dangerous it is because everyone who's having the vaccine or the people that are promoting the vaccine are just making it into a really dangerous, now virulent stream because you do not vaccinate things when you're in the middle of the peak of it. You just make the virus stronger if you believe viruses exist. Well, that's an argument for a different day. But this is what's so silly is there's this whole thing where people have got this inverted snobbery where they think they're being considerate by wearing a mask. I've said to everyone, I mean, my sisters don't speak to me. They don't speak to me. I'm completely banned from corresponding to them because I'm trying to kill my mother by persuading her not to have the vaccine. And I'm considerate by not wearing a mask because I'm half the problem. And when I went on the first protest march, when I was telling them that I was speaking to David Icke, they wouldn't go near me. It was like I had syphilis or something because I was obviously contaminated. It was hysterical. And it's like saying, like, if you're going to have sex with someone, I'm not the one that needs a condom. You're having sex with them. You take the protection. It's so ridiculous, this thing. And it's like, all we're asking.
Why can't people get that into the head? This is the thing I was saying earlier. These are intelligent people.
Yeah.
I know that my brothers are intelligent people. They're not stupid. But they can't work that out. And I think, well, what has happened to people to kind of, it's like there's this invisible curtain that's been pulled across the front of their face and they haven't got the ability to look behind it. Well, what's gone on? How's it happened? I just don't understand it.
Honestly, it's really weird. I've come to the stage in my life where I've realized that I've had so many different careers in my life because I've got a low boredom threshold. So I've worked in environmental management where I was a specialist in water quality and land contamination. So I know all the shit that's on our land and in our water. I've worked for the telecoms industry, so I know all about the EMF and what that does to people. I've worked as a consultant for the National Health and for the NHS and seen how corrupt the reporting is and how much data they choose to hide from people. And I don't care how much trouble I get into by saying this. I've worked for so many different industries and I can now see, it's in our food, it's on our television, it's in our education, it's in the water, it's in the air, it's on the phone, it's on every single computer game that your children are playing. We are so bombarded, it's in the fluoride in your toothpaste. And the trouble is, I mean, one of the things I really deal with animals and I would really honestly, without sounding big-headed, say I'm an expert on, is the effect of gut health and pesticides and herbicides and toxic poisoning on the fact that when you bugger up the microorganisms in your gut, when you bugger up the microbiome, it affects everything about your mental capacity and your physical capacity. And the trouble is most people, it's so overwhelming for them that they don't know where to start, that it's easier to bury your head in the sand and not start anywhere. And I think the problem is a lot of the time, and I've been really guilty of this in the past, I'm very slowly learning, is that you can set the bar too high. And when you make the changes too unachievable to people, they just can't cope and they do nothing. Whilst if you give people little bite-sized tests, so you might say, right, this month, I just want you to choose a natural toothpaste with no fluoride in it. And that most people could cope with. And then next month, you might want to sort of say, right, here's a few good water filters that you might want to look at. There's different as a price range to suit your budget. But this might take out some of the harmful waters in your harmful chemicals in your water. But if you flood people with too much doom and gloom, it's so hopeless that they can't start anywhere. They can't take that first step.
What you're describing is exactly really how you train birds or horses. You start, you make it easy to begin with, and then gradually it gets more and more difficult until eventually, you know, they've traveled a long way, they don't even realize it. But that's what's happened with people. If you go back to, I think we were talking about this last time, but when political correctness became the thing that people, we know it was a while ago now, 30 years ago perhaps, but we suddenly noticed this phrase, political correctness, and it crept into society, and it's crept in, and it's now, it's in everything, and it's totally ridiculous. I mean, to me, I get so frustrated when I look at the way people talk, the way people, well, the way they try to stop you from saying the truth all the time. And it's crept into our everyday way of communicating. And I think it's spoiled.
Never known, I'm sure your children and my children, they've never known anything less. So, you know, when mum says that, you know, some things that are very unpolitically correct, the children are absolutely horrified. They can't say that. But when you and I were at school, you were allowed to say there was one ginger kid, there was one fat kid, there was one with eczema. I was bulbous bottom. You know, you all had a nickname and you were allowed to do it. It's just ridiculous. It's just completely ridiculous. But now, and I think this comes into people being tuned out of their intuition, because you're not allowed to have an opinion. You know, I grew up when it was absolutely normal to have a healthy debate. I remember at school having to debate pro fox hunting. And I'm completely anti fox hunting, obviously, as you can imagine. But I won the debate pro fox hunting because we actually had to debate things we didn't believe in, but because to listen to other people's point of view and opinions. And it was a really useful experience. But you're not allowed to debate anything now, because if you have an opinion that doesn't fit within a tiny little box, then there's something wrong with you. You know, they've been...
The thing is, you're censored now. I mean, if you put, I've had this, I don't know, you have as well. You put something out on any social media platform that some people deem as being incorrect or politically incorrect, and then it's censored. So what they're doing by taking people's voices away, or certain words which you're not allowed to use. I mean, I'll give you an example now. Okay, the word puff, P-O-O-F, puff. I don't mind if people are gay, transgender, whatever they want to do. I don't care, as long as they're adults and they're consenting and it makes them happy. I'm happy, right? Doesn't bother me. I can't be doing with all these puffs mincing about on the telly, who are doing all this sort of like effeminate. I can't do it, thank goodness. But you know how they behave. They sort of speak in that ridiculous. I mean, Alan Carr, and I've worked with Alan Carr a few times. You know, when he's talking, I can't do it, but you know, it's so effeminate. It's more effeminate than a woman. It's ridiculous. Now, that takes effort. You're not born talking like that.
No.
It takes kind of, it's like, almost become theatrical now. Well, it is theatrical. Now, for me personally, it makes me skin crawl. I don't like it. If someone's a homosexual, get on with it. I'm not bothered. But I can't be doing with puffs, as my dad would say, mincing around, just doing this sort of floaty, gay, puffy stuff. I can't be doing with it. Now, that's my choice. And I'm not saying that everybody in the world should agree with me. I'm sure there's lots and lots of people who hate me saying it, but it's my view. I'm allowed to feel like that. Surely, if people are allowed to kind of mince around in stockings and suspenders on these gay pride marches with rainbow flags, thinking it's great, surely I'm allowed to think I don't like it, think they look ridiculous. It's embarrassing. Why is that censored? Why am I censored for feeling like that and thinking like that? Because it's my opinion. And I'm sure there's thousands of other people who feel the same. I know there is. A lot of the people I speak to, a lot of my friends who, wouldn't go out, wouldn't dream of saying that to anyone. But I'm not harming anyone by saying it, because it's my feelings, my thoughts, it's my opinion. So why am I silenced for saying it? You know what I mean? It's narrowing discussion. It's not broadening discussion. We're not learning more about each other by going, shh, we can't say that. We're not learning. It's not inclusive. It's the very reverse of being inclusive.
And people are definitely much happier. You and I grew up where we were taught sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. Now, we all know words can hurt you, and we all know words have an energy to them. And animals teach us this more than anything. They're not picking up the words we speak. They're picking up the energy behind it. But at the end of the day, you need to survive in any world, you need a certain level of resilience. And also, I can remember, so I've got a twin sister who was really naughty at school. I was a goody two shoes at school because I actually really liked school. And so we'd go to my parents would go to parents' evening, and you'd be shitting yourself because you knew when we were at school, the teachers actually told the truth about you. And if you were a little shit, they told your parents you were a little shit. Well, I go to parents' evening when my children are at school. It's the most ridiculously politically correct experience. It's completely meaningless. And then when my son was at school, there was one teacher, and you're all queuing up in the hall and you're waiting for your little your little slot to go there. Now, I wear hearing aids and I could hear this. And there was this one economics teacher, I won't name his name, absolutely brilliant, because all the other teachers talk about areas for improvement. They never say your child is a lazy git that doesn't concentrate. They never, that it's all about areas for improvement, and it's all done in a political way, completely meaningless. You're not allowed to say whether they're going to fail or not, because you have to be encouraging about everyone. When we went there, it's like they're top of the class, they're bottom of the class, get on with it, And then this one teacher sitting there saying in a really loud voice to this parent, your child is the most obnoxious little bugger I've ever had. He's never going to get anywhere. He's a complete sport brat like this. And the whole hall could hear. And it was absolutely brilliant, because he was the only person in the whole hall that was actually being honest. And the parents looked shocked. And then you could see they looked quite grateful, because it backed up what they knew. And it actually gave them another thing. None of us are doing any favors by not being honest. And if you're not honest with your emotions, there's a difference between being cruel and being authentic. There's a big difference. And most people aren't saying, if you're being authentic, you're not doing it to be cruel. But equally, if you're fat, you're fat. If you're, you can't.
I had a thing this week about that. Because you're absolutely right. Okay, if my horse, right, one of my horses, has been out eating all summer, it's a fat horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? If one of my falcons has eaten loads and loads of pigeons, and it's been in an aviary for 6 months, it's a fat falcon.
Exactly.
If a woman is obese, she's big. She's not fat. She's big.
But you shouldn't be getting on a horse when you're obese. This is my point, is you should not be getting on a horse when you're obese. So you're not allowed. So, I live in Surrey. I'm sorry, but it's just politically correctness gone mad. So you've got everyone with these dressage horses, which are completely overhorsed for them anyway. And then you've got these great big fat women that haven't done any exercise since they had their babies 20 years ago. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I will hold my hands up. I've put on loads of weight over lockdown because as you can see, I'm enjoying my wine. But I won't go then and go and get on my horse until I've got myself fit, because I shouldn't. Anyone who knows, if I give someone a piggyback and they're fit and they can hold their core in, and they're holding themselves steady, I can give someone double my weight to piggyback. But if you've got someone that just lands on you like a slump of potatoes, but it's being honest. And now they've got this real issue where riding instructors aren't allowed to say you're much too big for that horse. Well, you are. You're too fat. You've got no core strength. You're causing back issues. Get off the poor thing. And I wish, and if the horse bucks it off, you blame it on a behaviour problem, when really they're saying, get the hell off me. And
of course they are. That's what we were going on about earlier when you were saying that animals are honest, and they are. Yeah. Because they're not bothered. They go, oh, I better not say that. I mean, nobody wants to just be outwardly offensive. Nobody. I don't want to upset and offend anybody. But at the same time, I don't want to kind of go along with the lie just because, you can't face the truth. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Expecting someone else. So the thing is, for me, I mean, I'm a pony person, so I've got 2 New Forest ponies and a Shetland. Obviously, I don't ride the Shetland, but one of my New Forest is retired, and the other one I do. Although actually, I very rarely ride him now because I like taking him out for walks with me. But if I'm really honest with myself, so I'm an adult riding a pony. So if I put on weight, I won't get on him until I've lost the weight, because it's not fair on him. So, and similarly, if I haven't exercised and sorted my core out, I won't. So I'm completely honest. I know when I'm fat and I know it's self-inflicted, and I know then I can choose to do something about it. That's a fact of life. When I make bad choices about food, I get spotty and fat. I might choose to do that occasionally, but
I love a spotty fat chick.
Pardon?
I love a spotty fat chick.
Exactly. But I at least take ownership for it. I can't blame someone else for it, because I'm lucky enough that I can choose what I go and eat. My dogs and my cats can, because they can hunt for themselves, but my dogs and to a large extent my horses are dependent on me to make those choices for them. So therefore, I have to choose wisely, and if not, I can't blame them. If one of my dogs is overweight, that's my fault, not the dog's fault.
Well, it's true. You know what we should do, though? We should, because obviously the owls are being a bit quiet. Yeah. We should definitely focus, because I'm a great believer in all the positive stuff, positive thinking.
Oh, completely.
And let's flip onto something a bit more positive rather than fat liar. What was it? Fat spotty, what was it? Oh, fat spotty puffs. Let's get off that.
Probably turn the comments off this video, because we're going to get absolutely slated. Yeah.
Oh
well, never mind. We're used to that. Yeah.
So I can't think of anything nice to say.
So I want to ask you, so we're both really privileged that we share our lives with animals and we live in nature. So what are some of your top tips? I mean, you've covered some of them because you've been outside working and thing, but what are your top tips for people that they can take on board, that someone that, regardless of where you're living, that they can actually start doing tomorrow?
Well, I reckon, first of all, turn the telly off. That's got to be number one, because that's the most toxic thing that people seem to be focused on. So number one, do that. Perhaps flick on in the evening just to see what the headlines are, but don't get immersed in it, because it's just toxic. It just upsets you. And try and get outside. I mean, I don't know what the weather's like in England now. I presume spring is starting to be in the air. I think the clock's changed this weekend. So everybody should try and get out if they can. If they're able-bodied and fit enough, they should definitely try and get out. Even, one of the things I love to do and here, and it's irrelevant to where you are, because if it's nighttime, I love going for midnight walks. I absolutely love going for it. And look, actually, you can't see it. I'll just see if you can. I'll move you a sec, because the moon's out. It's almost a full moon. Just a sec. I don't want to drop you in the fire. If I go there, can you see the moon?
Oh wow! Oh my God! Yeah, I'm gonna have to go out and see what it looks like from our angle.
I think the full moon is on Saturday, I think, and I love to go for a nighttime walk. I used to do it years ago with my brother Chrissy. My parents had a pub in Cornwall, and we used to walk down to the beach with the dogs at about midnight, and with the torch, and it was beautiful where we were, but nevertheless, at night, anywhere's pitch black, you can't really see. So I reckon if you can get out and go walking, If you're living somewhere horrible, just go at night. But if you just get out during the day and go for a stretch and get some fresh air and just feel good about being outside, and you know, all the animals in the fields round and about. If I was to go and have a chat with the cow down the road, the cow is completely unaware of all this bullshit about COVID. It's not bothered about it. It's no different to any other year. It's only us who are worried about it, and we're worried about it because of all this bombardment that we're receiving. So I try to turn it off, limit what I'm listening to because I know it doesn't do me any good, and try and live within my own little world because, you know, I've always had that. People, oh, you're in your own world, you. Yeah, and what's wrong with that? My world's lovely. I love being in my little world, and I recommend everybody should live in their own little world because if it makes you happy, then what the hell's wrong with that? I mean, there's so many things going on around the world that we can't change in other countries. You know, all sorts of things are going on, and really, how can we change any of it? We can't. What was that noise I just did? Something just fell. I don't know what it was.
You're back.
I'm not burning the house down. Hey, I've got to quickly tell you this because this is really exciting. I've met some really nice people, and just down the track, it goes up the valley to the next mountain. There's a really lovely couple who I've got to know. Jorge is the husband, and Marion's the lady. Anyway, I've become good friends with them. And do you remember last time we spoke, I told you about those two cowboys who came past?
Yeah.
One of them is called Luis, and he looks like something from a film. Good-looking guy, dark hair, and he had all the gear on, the hat and everything. He looked just like he'd come straight out of the film. Anyway, it turns out my friend Jorge and Luis are buddies. Oh. So they'd gone up to his house and they'd had a drink. I think I told you about it. They all got a bit pissed and then they rode past. Anyway, tomorrow night, Jorge and myself and my Rebecca and Marion were going over to this guy's. He's got a ranch. They call it a rancho. So basically, he's got a big ranch and he's got horses and he plays guitar. Well, I play guitar, so does Jorge. And we're going to sit out, watch the blooming stars and the moon. We're going to play guitar. We're probably going to get nicely oiled. And in the morning, we're going to go riding horses, watch the sunrise. How great's that going to be?
How amazing. And that's one of my big tips, is just to really, whether you can physically do it, or if not, you know, get on the phone, get on a FaceTime, whatever you've got, whatever you can do, is actually connect with people that are aligned with you, because it's so uplifting. Yeah. We don't need to, you know, the whole point about every human, every animal, we're all individual and we're all diverse, and no one is better or worse than anyone else. I hate it, all this calling people sheep and things like this, because we're all on our own journey, and actually be with people physically or virtually, with people that uplift you, and that you're on an alignment with, because we're all on our own journey, and you know, we're all exactly where we're meant to be.
Listen, probably won't do it now. I don't know what it is. I don't even know what that was. But we went looking at bears the other day. I don't know. Did I tell you?
Hey, it'd be really funny if a big bear just came up behind you.
Wouldn't be that bloody funny. I'm frightened of them. But there's in this area, right? There's these cats. I made a right idiot of myself the other day. They're called servals. Okay.
Oh
servals.
My God, they're beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah. Anyway, we got them. Anyway, I was talking to someone today and I said, you know what I saw? Ran across the road in front of me. He said, what? I said, a cervix. Oh. The cervix? He says, yeah, you know, one of them cat things. He said, oh, he's serval, you divvy. Oh, yeah. Of course it is. But anyway.
Beautiful.
So they are beautiful, yeah. And but we went looking at bears. Now, I was talking to one of the rangers at this particular viewing area where and they're massive, these bears. And you think that grizzlies and stuff are, you know, the bears here where we live are, if you stand up, they're like 7 feet tall. They are massive.
So what are they? Brown bears or black bears?
European brown bears. Okay.
I didn't even know you had them there.
Well, I didn't know either, but they used to live very, very commonly in this part of northern Spain, and then they dropped in numbers, but you know they've been brought back now. And I think he said there's between 200 and 300 of them round and about. Anyway, I was talking to this guy and I said, we live at this place here. I said, where's the nearest bear to our house that you know of? And he looked at the map and he said, oh, and it's at so and so, and he pointed it out. Well, when I got back home, I got a little one of those things that draws a circle. I can't remember, is it called a set square? I think it's called a set square. And I put it where our house is.
Compass.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a straight line to where this bear lives from our house, it's 2 miles, 2 miles away, except it's across a mountain range. So, you know, you'd have to go up and then over the other side, which a bear could do. So we're actually about 2 miles away from the nearest that we know of.
So have you got horses out there?
Yeah, we have got horses. Yeah.
So what do your horses, how do they react to this? Because that's so interesting, because obviously in the UK, we don't have any bears and servals and things. No. How do your horses react to all this?
Well, as far as I know, we've never had a problem with them. We've had horses here, you know, for the last 2 months. And we've got a foal as well, by the way, who's about 6 months old now. But there's never been a problem with bears eating horses. No. But there has been a problem here with a few horses have been eaten by the wolves, because there's wolves as well.
Yeah.
And when one day last week we went to this fantastic place, there's a beautiful waterfall. God, it's absolutely stunning. I'll send you a picture. Beautiful, and it's in this forest, and it's gorgeous. But to get to this waterfall, we were driving over this mountain range, and there's all these wild ponies everywhere, and they looked a lot like Dartmoor or Exmoor ponies, that type, that sort of size, similar colour. And I got out of the car, went over, and you could just get close enough to just about touch them. I thought, I wonder what these are. Anyway, I asked somebody, and they're called Astoricons. Astoricons, okay? Oh. So the area is called Asturias, and it's like no, sorry, not a con, Astoricorn, because it made me think of the unicorn. And anyway, I looked up the history of this, and actually they're related very, very closely to Dartmoor and Exmoor ponies. Wow. Because this area here, a lot of the people who live in this part of northern Spain are Celtic. Okay, now I didn't realize that there was a connection between Scotland and Ireland and Wales and northern Spain, but it is, and actually historically they were very close, and they used to go across the Bay of Biscay. And so there's a lot of fair-haired and blue-eyed people and red-headed people. They also have pipes, so they play like a bagpipe, except they don't have several pipes, but they play pipes, and they also have a tartan. So there's a real strong connection between, like I say, this area and the UK. And the reason that this area was protected is because when the Muslim invasion, which happened, the Moors came up from the south of Spain. They came as far as Asturias, where the mountains are, where we live. It's called the Picos de Europa. And it's a big, massive mountain range. And because the people who lived up in the mountains were mountain people, when the Muslims were trying to invade, they were picking them off. And so this area was never taken over by the Muslims. And they called it the last stronghold of the true Spanish bloodline. So they're very, very proud. Anyway, on Sunday, we're going to this place called Covadonga, which is where the king of Asturias was celebrated, and there's a big statue in a cathedral. So we're looking forward to that. But anyway, going back to the ponies, the ponies here, the wild Astoricorns, are just lovely, and they sometimes get eaten by the wolves up on the tops of the mountains. So hopefully enough of them.
Because I think that's probably why people in the UK, we mustn't go on too much longer because everyone would be so bored, but I think that's probably why the people in the UK, we've been so sheltered for so long. On a nature side of things, there's no great big predators at all, apart from us humans, but also on a human side of things, because we've sort of been so dominant in terms of, the Commonwealth and conquering the world. We've sort of always had that attitude that we're a little bit invincible. And I think this might be a reason why it's such a shock to everyone now in the UK and why we're suffering so badly with it all, is because, you know, it's just beyond our comprehension that we could actually be on the victim side of things. And, you know, I do see why that is. And, you know, and even in nature, you know, look at what we've got in the UK. We've got nothing. We've got no major predators at all, really.
Not really, no. Do you know what's really strange? Now I don't live in the UK, and prior to, I mean, I've travelled a lot anyway, but I'm looking at the UK now from afar. You know, when you say, when you step back from a situation that you were in, you can't see it when you're in it, too close, but when you step back and you look at it objectively, you've got a different view. Well, now I feel like my home is here now, if I'm honest, I really do. And I'm looking back at the UK and I see it completely differently.
Yeah.
I see it now as being quite a small island.
Yeah.
And I hate saying this because I love Britain. It's my home. It's where I was born. It's where my family are and everything else. But it's quite a tin pot little country that doesn't do things really well, if I'm honest. And I hate saying that because it's where I was brought up. But it's a lot of other countries, I can well understand why they look at Britain and think it's a bit backward and awkward and a little bit shit because nothing works, because I can see that view now. Now I don't live there. I can really, really see that. It's not an awful thing to say about your home, but it's true.
No, I think it's true. I think that's the problem. And I think it's really, in a way, it's really positive, because I think, you know, now is a time more than ever where, for me, I've been spending a lot of time recently just going, really connecting back into myself and saying, what sort of future do I want to create for myself and my two-legged and four-legged family? And I think that's exactly it. You know, you get pigeonholed down a certain direction, and actually now's the time for a real big change. And, you know, a lot of people are being forced into a change, and, you know, it's hard, but it's positive. You know, most people don't make changes in their own life until something catastrophic happens, you know, divorce, a serious illness, a death, etc. And, you know, a lot of people have been forced into re-examining what they want. And so, you know, certainly we don't want to be using the thing a new normal. It's just like, this is a sort of almost ground zero, reset and move forward in terms of, on an individual basis, what is important to you and your community.
You know, from where I am looking at the moment, I see it as though, like, British people are brought up now, especially this, you know, later generations, they're brought up to aspire to live in a little square box in a street, work their balls off, maybe have 2 weeks a year where they go on holiday and watch television and go to the pub. And that's what they're sort of, that's the expectation that's almost kind of universal in the UK now. It's like this, it's like any idea of going off and doing something really adventurous or being breaking the mold would be just a pipe dream to most people. And it's such a shame, because, you know, British people are amazing. We've done so many incredible things, and look how we cope with the Olympics and stuff. And there's such brilliant spirit, and people in Great Britain have got a great, really, really great sense of humor. I think we're the funniest
really
nation. But what's, excuse me, one of the things that I just find a little bit disappointing is that it's that the sort of aspirations which has become the norm is to just live like I say, that life, work, wash the car at the weekends, live in a little square house in a street with neighbours, and go on holiday once a year. Well, I mean, cracky, life's much more than that, surely. You know, we should
out of our children from the word. Yeah, it's drummed out, Jonathan, from our children. So my daughter used to play for Chelsea, and she's left now, so I can actually say it at long last. And the whole while they were there, all these really, really talented young ladies were told that they were never going to achieve anything. So this is one of the top clubs in the whole world. And the message was drummed into them is, you know, you are not going to achieve. You're just not. She's gone to America. She spent 3 months in America. Not even 3 months. How long has she been? January. What are we in now? January. February, like 2 months in America. The difference in the attitude is unbelievable. So she spent years at the top level of her game, being constantly told that you can't achieve, you can't achieve, you can't achieve. And then you go there and you get someone that tells you you can achieve, and you see the difference in it. And I see that not just in sport, I see it in education, I see it in everything. It's like people are kicked down, and it's so not the British spirit. I mean, the British people have got such a strong picture, and at British UK, I mean, the Scots are amazing, the Welsh are amazing. I mean, look at, you know, who'd argue with a Scot, you know, not me. But you know, it's been drummed out of us. It's like we've just had that life was kicked out of them. And how many of our children are ever given the chance that they can follow their dreams? The whole way through school, everyone's like, of course you can't be a footballer, of course you can't do that. Silly, that's not a proper job. Who says it's not? Who says? Who are you to say that they can't fulfill their talent? And I hate it. I think it's really sad, and I don't think it's a proper British spirit, but I think it's this contagion of political correctness where people think that if you aim low, you can be pleasantly surprised, when actually it doesn't work like that. You know, let children reach for their dreams, let them do it and help them along it. And, you know, if you need to support them when they hit the bumps and the obstacles, you can do that, but don't stop them dreaming.
Definitely. I know we're going on really quite a long time, but I want to quickly say this. Two things. Firstly, you're really preaching to the converted here, because you know, being engaged to an American from Florida who's done the life that Rebecca's done, she's a cheerleader. I've never known anyone as positive. I mean, talk about positivity. It almost gets to the point where you go, stop being so positive all the time. As a Brit, you know, she's so positive, unbelievable. But I actually think it's great. My family, and I know my sister, finds all that over-the-top positivity, they find it really irritating.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it's brilliant. I think it's refreshing, and I love it. Anyway, that besides the point. What I really wanted to say, and I was thinking about this earlier, is that I think that going back to the COVID nonsense, it's almost become the new religion. And the reason I say that is that, you know, years ago, people were like, they had to be God-fearing. And if they didn't believe, and if they were to say anything about it, it was blasphemy. And, you know, you had to be frightened of not being, and you had to behave. And blah, blah, blah. Okay, now people don't, generally speaking, I think that religion is probably dropped in its following now. I certainly would say that, you know, as an observer, there's not that many people who go to church like they used to, perhaps in our grandparents. So this whole thing with COVID now has almost replaced religion, because first of all, it's the thing that everyone talks about. Secondly, everyone's frightened of it, and none of us can see it, none of us can prove it's there, but we're all frightened of it. And the third thing is if you dare speak out against it and say, well, actually, I think it's a load of old crap, you get the people, the finger waggers, as if it's blasphemy. Oh, you can't say that, you mustn't say that. And I really do think that is quite a good comparison. It's to become the new religion for people. And even look at like the vicar. Remember when a vicar would come in and he'd have his long gown on and can't say anything, the vicar's here. Well, now it's been replaced by people in PP, what do they call it? You know, the PPRs. Well, we can't say anything. Look, they've got a rubber mask on and they've got the rubber gloves. They must know better than we do. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's totally crazy.
It's completely crazy. I mean, I was so encouraged by the amount of people at the London march this last weekend. It was absolutely fantastic. And, you know, people in their little communities, we think that we're on our own, we're the one mad hatter out there and we're completely ostracized. But when you saw, I mean, there was definitely at least 1 million people there. It was absolutely huge. It was beautifully done. And that gave me real hope that there's a lot more people that are actually seeing the picture than we think.
I'm sure there is. I can see it even just observing things on social media. And are they going to do another one?
I think they will do. I think they really will do. I mean, we need to now. We've got to keep the pressure up because the vaccine passports and everything are. I'm thinking of setting up a business for forgery. But you know, it is just getting ridiculous now, and I think you know, people have got to keep the momentum up, particularly over the summer months and everything, when you know everyone's a lot happier, your spirits are high, you've got more energy. There's nothing like sunshine.
That's the thing. A lot of people won't be glued to the TV because they'll actually get out and
they'll be outside. They'll be recharging their batteries with the good old sunshine, being out in nature, planting their plants, you know, things. And there's nothing like that to lift the spirits. And when people feel more positive, they feel more empowered. I thought this travel ban, this ridiculous £5,000 you can't travel, I thought that would tip people over the edge. Let's wait and see if it does, but I really hope it does, because the elites can still travel, because the people with the second homes and the this and that, but it's just us normal useless eaters, as they call us, that can't. So I'm really hoping that will be the final straw that breaks the camel's back.
Really, things like that. And when people kind of go out and they enjoy themselves and they go to Cornwall or wherever they're going to go on holiday, how can people, as pissed off as they are now, accept that they're going to have to go back to being as pissed off as they are now when they've experienced it once already? Because do you remember a year ago we thought, well, this might last a few months, we'll go along. Well, I never did. A lot of people went along with it, didn't they, just for sort of, because they didn't realize it was going to go on so long. Surely now people, they know how miserable it is when it goes on as long as it's gone on. So if they get any sense of freedom, well, there's two ways of looking at it. If they're given freedom for a little while this summer, they're not going to want to go back to being in lockdown. And if they're not given freedom, they're going to say, we're not putting up with this any longer. We're going to go to the beach. We're going to go and see our friends. I can't see how they're going to keep it going for much longer, because they're going to have to keep telling more and more lies, and they're going to have to make the lies more and more convincing, and people are going to see through it. I think it's going to change. I really do.
I really do. I see the change. I'm really positive. I think this time, I mean, the poor buggers that have had the vaccine, and a lot of people, particularly the elderly, have been really bullied into it and told by their doctors that it's safe, even though none of the doctors have had it. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful. But then what was so ludicrous is this travel ban that's been put on place. They're not even allowing people that have been vaccinated to travel. So wake up, everyone. This is giving you no liberties. And I genuinely do feel really sorry for them. You know, we've all been duped at different times in our life. I don't think there's anyone that can put their hands up and said that they weren't taken in for something. I really hope that everyone pulls together and supports people through the next stage, because, you know, you can't see what you don't see. No one knows what stresses different people have got in their lives and why they're making the decisions they are. But I think gone is the time, apart from the politicians, that I think they should bring back hung, drawn and quartered, you know, back to good old Henry VIII time. But for the general people of whatever country you're in, I think that people should be really compassionate and pull together and drop this blame culture and just sort of say, whatever stage you're at, let's just decide how we're going to move forward.
Yeah. Well, look, we better wrap it up, but there's so many more things going on. First, we could be yapping until tomorrow morning if we had the time.
Whiskey fairies keep coming. But yeah, let's do another Fireside chat. It's absolutely lovely. It's really inspiring to see you out there in nature. And, you know, if anyone's got access to the neighbour's dog, any animals yourself, if you haven't got any animals, then most of you can go out to a park and find a squirrel to talk to. So that would be my advice tomorrow. Don't listen to the politicians, listen to the squirrels.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good on the squirrels.
Yeah, rise up the squirrels, yeah. Oh, so lovely. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We'll both go and eat now. And let's arrange one, yeah? We'll do another.
Absolutely, definitely.
Yeah, lots
of love.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.